All right, good.
So
We'll
I
see
just
what happens.
started the recording since it's 7:03. I'm thankful for Dean as our other public.
Yeah, so why don't we'll kick this off. Welcome to the forum. This is a continuing effort to move the block grant along to benefit our Washington Community Housing Trust. And if it's okay, I'll read the notice of the public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the town of Washington will conduct a public hearing by the Town Board of Selectmen on May 18th, 2021 at 7 p.m. via Zoom to discuss the fiscal year 2021 Community Development Block Grant Program to solicit citizen input. Maximum award limits are $1.5 million for public housing modernization and $1 million for infrastructure associated with the development of affordable housing. Major activity categories are acquisition, housing rehabilitation, public housing modernization, community facilities, public services, and economic development. Projects funded with the CDBG allocations must carry out at least one of the three national objectives: benefit to low and moderate income persons, elimination of slums and blight, or meeting urgent community development needs. The purpose of the public hearing is to obtain citizens' views on the town's community development and housing needs and review and discuss specific project activities in the areas of housing, economic development, or community facilities, which could be a part of the town's new application for funding for the year 2021. The Economic and Community Development Department, on behalf of the town of Washington, anticipates applying for a grant amount of not to exceed $1 million under the Public Housing Modernization Support Development of Low and Moderate Income Housing Eligible Activity. The town of Washington promotes fair housing and makes all programs available to low and moderate income households, regardless of race, creed, color, national origin, ancestry, sex, gender identity or expression, marital status, age, lawful source of income, familial status, learning disability or physical mental disability, or sexual orientation. If you are unable to attend the public hearing, you may direct written comments to the Town of Washington Economic and Community Development Department, 2 Bryan Plaza, Washington Depot, Connecticut, 06794, or you may telephone the Economic and Community Development Department at 860-868-6383. In addition, information may be obtained at the above address between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on weekdays. All are encouraged to attend. The hearing is accessible to the handicapped. Any disabled persons requiring special assistance or non-English speaking persons should contact the Selectman's Office ADA Coordinator at 860-868-2259 at least 5 days prior to the hearing. Equal opportunity and affirmative action.
Thank you. All right. Next, Bill, you were gonna, I don't know if you have your agenda in front of you.
Yeah, I do. I have the agenda here. Let me preface my remarks by recounting a story the dean of my law school gave one night when he was speaking. He was from Kansas, and he said that he had just gotten out of law school, and they had a thing at the Lions Club there at the local town, and for him to talk on a subject. And he got there, it was snowing that night, and he wound his way, got there, and he got to the hall, and there was one person out in the assembly. And so he just started, and he went on for about an hour. And then at the end, he said, "Are there any questions?" And the gentleman that was there said, he said, "I'm a farmer." And he said, when only one of the cows comes home, I don't dump the full load. So I don't want, I don't know how many people are here. I don't want to sit here and go on and on for hours if there's not a lot of people, but certainly it would be appropriate if there aren't a lot of people for them to ask questions after I finished and Dave Berto have finished. But just a quick overview, because you're recording it. I'm the president of the Washington Community Housing Trust. We have 37 apartments here in Washington. We have Dodge Farm, which has 14 units. On Brinsmead Road, we have Riverwoods, which is on, the old Main Street, but on River Road, elderly housing. We have 12 units there, and then we have 11 units at Church Street in New Preston. This project that we're proposing to go forward on the Community Development Block Grant with the town of Washington. The applicant has to be the town. Community Development Block Grant funds are money that are allocated to the states by the Congress that comes through HUD, and eligible towns and cities in Connecticut are eligible to send in requests and applications for funding for all the items Jimmy had mentioned in his public hearing notice. What we're requesting is funds for our project at Dodge Farms. Dodge Farms was built back in the mid-'80s. We actually got a community development block grant through the town about, I think, around 18, 20 years ago to do many of the repairs and things that we needed at that time. The apartments are limited to people who earn 80% of area median income, and not they can't pay more than 30% of their gross income for housing costs. So what happens is, there's just not ever really enough money, not just in what we do, but all public housing, in terms of setting aside funds for major capital items that come up. We take care of the maintenance and repair of things. We do have some funds that we can use for capital items, but we have a significant number of things that need to be addressed to keep these properties in great shape and make sure that our residents are well taken care of. Dave Berto, who will be speaking after me, who is our grant consultant, will touch base on some of the specific things. And certainly if there are any questions that any of you may have with regards to what we're proposing, the things that need to be repaired or maintained, we'll certainly entertain those. The town has been our partner in this going back to when the trust was formed back in the mid-'80s. It was a group of citizens here and clergy who came together to deal with the fact that there just were very few apartments in town. And in concert with the town, we changed our zoning regulations to allow for apartments or multifamily buildings to be constructed only by nonprofits and by the town of Washington. So the relationship between the town and the Housing Trust has been a very good partnership. As many of you know and have seen from, Michelle's Economic Development Committee, the Planning Commission, the Housing Commission, they're working right now to put together a housing plan that will allow us to, have our children, grandchildren be able to live in this town, as well as provide for all of us who are getting old that have big old houses that need to downsize into smaller homes. So we look forward to working with the town on all these projects as they come to fruition, as their plan is formed. And I would like to publicly thank Jim, the Board of Selectmen, Michelle, and all the rest of the folks, Planning Commission, Housing Commission, who have been helpful in moving the whole affordable housing mission forward. So I don't know if you want to hold the public participation. I see on the agenda, it's at the end, Michelle and Jim. But, we could then, next on the agenda is for David Berto, who's our consultant, as I mentioned, to, get into the goals, objectives, the funding available, et cetera. So I'll turn it over to Dave as he's there.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, great. I will cover the next items on the agenda. These are items that are required to be covered in the public hearing. So I'll go into each of those. Michelle, just for clarification, this is a Zoom, so the 5 participants we have, those are the 5 participants and there are not any others. Is that correct?
They're not right now. I just got a call from someone who was having trouble logging in and they're going to try again.
Okay, good. The other items on the agenda to be covered from the CDBG requirements, the goals and the objectives of the CDBG program. You have to meet one of the goals. And the first goal is to promote and enhance fair housing and fair housing choice. The project at Dodge Farms does that. The second goal is to expand and preserve decent, affordable housing. That's clearly what this project is about, for preserving decent, affordable housing. And the third goal is to promote and enhance suitable living environments. So again, all three of these goals align with the suggested proposed work that's being included in this application. The objectives were already read as part of the notice. You have to meet one of the objective. And the first objective is benefit to low and moderate income persons. So we meet that objective as well. The total amount of CDBG funds available, it varies every year. It's about $13 million for the state, for all of the small towns, and it's competitive. So this will be one of many applications that goes in. And it's probably going to fare pretty well, but we won't know till the awards are announced. Community development and housing needs of the applicant, of the town, and and the Housing Trust as a sub-recipient down to Dodge Farm. Bill Fairburn talked about that, for the need for the housing, the strong need, and the strong need to maintain the quality of the housing. Proposed activities for the project. Bill talked about that, for making necessary improvements to Dodge Farm. The amount to be requested is being worked on right now. The town has authorized up to $1 million. It'll come underneath that as we do our capital needs assessment and pricing, but that's the range for the amount to be requested. The role of the grantee is the town of Washington, and it will be the recipient and responsible for the program and administration. But the Housing Trust as sub-recipient will be working toward assisting in all of the aspects of that. And my company, Housing Enterprises, as a housing consultant, will be assisting both of those organizations through all of the details of the program. The proposed amount of funds to be used to benefit low and moderate income people is 100% of it, because it's all for a low to moderate income project. Amount and source of local funds to be expended. There is not any indication of any significant local funds to be expended. I think Jim was working with the town to see if they might be able to contribute a small amount of funds. Jim, is there anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. The goal of the Board of Selectmen in the town moving forward is to assist in this financially, as well as to have the government arm of housing, which is our Housing Commission, work closer with our Community Housing Trust to help facilitate these types of things. So we're definitely committed to that.
That's great. That's great. The last thing on the agenda is notification of any displacement because of the activities. There will be no displacement. Dodge Farm does have residents, full sequence of residents, but the amount of work that's being done and the amount of work being done within the residents will not require them to move while the work is being done. It'll be sequenced around the folks that are living there. So those are the items to be covered as it relates to the details of the CDBG grant program. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Dean, anything as a selectman?
Not as a selectman, no. I think, am I your lone visitor here? As the public?
You are our public.
I am the public. I do then have a question from that chair, if I may. It's sort of a general one, guys, and this is, forgive my naivete about this. Is the goal generally in these projects to have them be a break even? In other words, I assume the land is often granted, and we're building these things, at 80% medium income and 30% rent. Are we trying to make them a break even based on rent? I would assume.
Yeah, they do, Dean, they do break even. In other words, we don't get any subsidy on any of these projects for, rental subsidy for any of these folks. I think that some of the tenants that may have some individual problems, work through the Washington Community Fund, but they are self-sustaining. There are a number of different government programs. I think I've explained that, I run the New Samaritan Corporation. We have 64 sites, that are funded through HUD or the Department of Agriculture, DECD, where rents are subsidized, but none of our 37 units are subsidized, and they do break even. But what happens is, you really don't, and this is typical of public housing, essentially public housing everywhere. I mean, New York City's got about $8 billion worth of repairs that need to be made at NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority. So, as I said, about 18, 20 years ago, that we, did take advantage of a community development block grant to do a number of items at Dodge Farm. And, now it's 20 years later, and, there's other things, major things that we just don't have all the resources for. And one of the sad parts of public or, housing such as this is that, you never get enough money. I mean, if you wanted to get enough money to, be completely self-sustaining with the capital needs, the rents would not be affordable anymore.
Right.
And I think, Billy, isn't that, stop me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be, Dean, you bring up a good question. And that's something I think we have to try to make more clear to residents, is that model has to operate that way. This wasn't forgotten. It wasn't neglect. It wasn't unanticipated. Right. The simple fact is, from time to time, these grants are necessary to keep those rents affordable. And I think that's a huge misconception in the community that maybe we could work a little harder on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key. And Dave, I've been out with Dave and Anne Marie, who's our manager. And there's lots of things like, the pavement that's crumbling and stuff. I mean, it's still serviceable, but it needs to be fixed. It needs to be. So there's things like that. I mean, there's no, it's not like you read in the newspaper, some of these horror stories where, the plumbing pipes are all broken and the places are filled with mold and everything. Our places are really beautiful inside. It's just the capital items, we want to replace the heating system, these types of things. So that will be more energy efficient, save money, give the tenants a break in terms of what they have to put out, for heating expenses, et cetera. So it's and the Congress, recognizes this by providing, these funds, CDBG funds, and also home funds too, to help organizations like us in small towns that are struggling to, meet the needs of all their folks.
Well, that's a great answer. I appreciate that. And I assume that was true. And I know what a good job you all do and how we have to keep these places nice. I think that's the secret. If you told people, if you ran them like a tenant, like a landlord would in downtown New Haven, they would not be this nice. They would not have the upgrades. It wouldn't be possible to make them cost effective. So again, Jimmy's right. Sell it as, this is not mismanagement. Don't compare yourself to New York City, by the way, and that bureaucratic mess that's created that mess down there.
The beauty of what we do, Dean, is, of course, we're nonprofit. So there's nobody in our organization that takes a penny out of this. I mean, everybody that serves on the board contributes, whether it's time or resources, finances that they may have. Interestingly, we're, one of the things that the trust has not been good at is, with an annual appeal. So we're in the process of, starting to try and, get the community more involved and knowledgeable about what we do, and hopefully get some more funds coming in. So we may not have to do CDBGs as often as we might have to.
You ever try to solicit your tenants and get them involved? It's people who are partaking.
Yeah, there's some issues with, we, in the past, going way back, we did have, a tenant or two on the board, but the problem is, you're dealing with confidential information, about other tenants, having to do with their incomes and things, so that, we're sort of reluctant to, have someone that's actually a tenant, a peer of that's privy to, personal confidential information, which we have, they have to submit tax returns and all sorts of other confidential information in order for us to qualify them for the housing. And we don't think that it's appropriate to have them, but, they're deeply appreciative of what we do. And, the need is great. We have waiting lists, we have people that want to get into the housing that can't because we don't have enough of it. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for what you do. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you guys for, moving this forward with us. We appreciate it.
I have a question, David and Bill. I have the list that you had originally given the Housing Commission of just of some of the items that you were considering. Is the capital needs list completed, or is it not? Did you not want to share that? Because I know the Board of Finance had some questions about that last night when they were asking about this.
All right, Dave, you want to jump on that, or?
Yeah, we did check with Paul Seldow of Shadler Seldow Associates actually today about the status of that. They were out there with Bill and myself and Anne Marie a couple of weeks ago to do the initial evaluation to be able to prioritize and create a current capital needs priority list. He told us he'd have that completed by later this week. So we do not have that to share today because it's still being worked on, but we expect it in the next few days.
Okay.
Right, and the good news is, Shadler and Seldow have designed pretty much all our buildings at New Samaritan. So they're very knowledgeable about, this type of housing, and they're actually the architects for our latest project, which is an $8.5 million housing project in Hartford. So we have, great confidence in their ability to come and run the numbers. So we feel good about that.
Great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody questions or?
Are there any other questions? I guess maybe maybe David, you could just let us know a little bit about the order of what happens next. How does this move through?
Sure. The application is due on June 18th, which isn't that far away. There's a lot of details to be filled out between now and then. My office, working with both of the offices here, the town and the Housing Trust, is working on getting all that stuff done. Michelle, you and your folks have been very helpful so far in getting us to this point, which is great. And we'll be assembling all of that information for the review of the Housing Trust and the town. And then when it's due, it will be submitted. We can submit it on behalf of the town after the town reviews it and signs it. It will be submitted electronically to the Department of Housing, who administers the program. And then the hard part starts where we have to sit and wait. And we'll have to wait for 3, 4 or more months before there's an announcement. Last year it was delayed. It's delayed for a lot of reasons, but COVID was part of it because it took a lot of the time away from their regular work. Hopefully that won't be as much of an issue this year, but there's still an awful lot that the Department of Housing is doing in relationship to rent relief programs through the federal funds going through the Department of Housing. But later this year, the awards will be announced as to which projects were awarded, and that'll be great. And then the next hard part is we have to wait some more while they prepare the documents for the agreement. And then once we get the contract documents through the town, there'll be a checklist of a whole bunch of things that has to be done to be ready for signing the contract documents, which would be what we call initial closing and the start of the project. Once that occurs, then we will be able to proceed with the project. But the first part of the project will be to complete the specifications for the work. We'll be doing that in parallel after the awards are announced, so that the town can go out for competitive bid for the contractors, for the builder. And there'll be a time period for competitive bid, answering questions and selecting the contractor. And after that's done, then the work will be able to begin. And this work scope is not that extensive. It may be 3, 4, 5 months. It depends on scheduling. There'll be weekly meetings, status meetings, inspections, monthly processing of payments. And then at the end, there'll be a closeout. So that's the big picture. There's a lot of little details that goes into every one of those parts, but that's the big picture of the process.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have questions? I see Leslie was able to join us. Did you have a question, Leslie?
No, I'm good. I sat through the training this morning, so I agree with everything that David said tonight.
Yeah, your brain is swimming. That training is a little overwhelming, isn't it?
It's a lot of paperwork, and there's a lot of things that have to be accomplished. You have to have licensed contractors. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on.
I know, that's why we're so thankful that we have David.
Yes, that's what we do. That's where our expertise is, and we'll help you through all those things.
Appreciate that. All right, if we don't have any further questions, I don't see any reason to stick around. I mean, we could talk affordable housing all night, but I think all we needed to cover was the scope of this grant proposal.
Michelle, I'm just going to add, if you do get any questions after this, or someone sees a news report or something on it, or reads the minutes, David and I are more than happy to address any questions that anyone in the community has about the process, how it works, et cetera. So, feel free to call on us if you do get any inquiries.
Great,
Yes.
great. We will definitely do that. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone, for all you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dean and Jimmy and Michelle. Appreciate working with you, and David too. David is a good steward of all this, so you should know you're in real good hands.
Great. Thank you very much. Everyone have a great evening, and until the
You
next
too.
one.
All right, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Fun. Thanks. Bye-bye.